The most extreme form of bereavement is parental bereavement, and I know firsthand of this pain after losing my baby girl Milli at only 6 days old, with no indication of complication prior to her birth. It came as a complete shock to us. We never got to see her eyes, we never got to hear her cry. As the weeks passed and we were riding the tsunami of grief, those around us expressed how useless they felt. They didn't know that we too felt so useless. We didn't even know what we needed, but I knew at that point I needed to speak out. From Milli's life and death, this podcast was birthed. Little Life, Big Loss, as a safe space to talk about baby loss, grief, trauma, heartache, and hope. A safe space for lost parents to share their stories of their real-life angels. A place for those nearest and dearest to learn about our journeys and to gain a deeper understanding in how to help those who are riding the tsunami of grief. Welcome to Little Life, Big Loss. Hi there, Milli's mum here. My name is Rochelle and I'm the creator and host for this podcast, Little Life, Big Loss. Whilst I hadn't planned on adding trigger warnings to the podcast, because let's be honest, our whole life and this whole podcast is one big trigger, I would like to preface a few things. Every episode I record could include any of the following: birth trauma, stillbirth, neonatal loss, termination for medical reasons, mental health struggles, suicide, the stages of grief, and all the things in and around these topics. Some episodes might also mention living children and pregnancy after loss. Please read the caption for a summary of what you can expect in this episode. The opinions shared by my guests on the podcast are the opinions of those individuals and do not always reflect the same opinions of mine. We are not professionals, we are just lost parents sharing our story. If you hear of something that you wish to try for yourself, please seek professional guidance from a professional in that field. A GP, an obstetrician, a psychologist, psychiatrist, support worker, or the likes of. And finally, thank you all for the support and love that we have been receiving. I'm in love with this safe space I've created for our babies to be spoken about in so much real and raw detail. If you feel connected to an episode, please share it with someone that you think it might help. And if you would like to help our community, we have created a PayPal account and we are asking that each time you listen to an episode, you donate even just $1 to the account to help us do more things in this space. If you go to PayPal, search Little Life, Big Loss. We love and appreciate you so much, and thank you again. Hey, hello.
Hello.
So nice. So nice to be back. This is my first podcast of the year, and I'm so excited. I have the beautiful Aimee Taylor joining us today.
Hello. So nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So Aimee actually scheduled in to do the podcast last year, or we'd started talking about it, but you're so divine. You wrote on your form, I'm in no rush. I know there's so many women that need to share their story because you're just so sweet. That's the kind of person you are.
Oh,
so I want to give a little bit of background. So Aimee, do you still go to Hope?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually used to go to a church on the Central Coast many years ago down, it was called Hope UC, and I actually love that church so much. It's such a beautiful space, and I've always said it, they actually do grief and loss really well, for a strange thing to say. But, I just always remember being there for like Mother's Days and Father's Days. And even if you haven't lost that person, totally off topic, but I have such an estranged relationship with my family. And I just always felt like Darlene did those kind of days really well. But So I didn't know Aimee and her husband Luke, but I had always seen them around church, and I remembered years ago that they were pregnant and then they lost their baby, and I was a mutual friend with a friend of theirs, and so I just kind of heard of their story, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, 3 years later, I'm in hospital and I'm about to lose Milli, and I just remember thinking, I need to chat to that girl that lost the baby. And I couldn't even think of your name. And I was I'm racking my brain, and I messaged my friend Danielle and I said, who was your friend that lost the baby? I need to speak to her, and she gave me your details, and I had, we were friends on Facebook, but I just, my brain wasn't working, and so for everyone listening, I messaged Aimee and I just said, and I still remember walking up the hallway messaging you. Like I remember the moment I messaged you. I was walking out of NICU and I was walking up the hallway to go meet with Dylan, and I had just been told that I wasn't taking Milli home that day. And I just wrote, I was just like, hey, Aimee, I just found out I'm not bringing my baby home. How do I breathe? And I just remember you replying straight away, which was such a blessing. I was like, oh my gosh, she's online. And you did, you were like, you wrote a lot. And I just remember it was like, breathe, hold her and smell her and take her in, and remember the weight of her on your chest. And you sent me songs to listen to. I know. And it was so crazy that in such a moment, I thought of you. And the reason I thought of you is because I remember years ago when you guys lost Lawson, and I remember hearing the story, and then I remember seeing you at church on stage. And I've told this story so many times that people are going to be like, oh, this is the girl she's talking about. I remember seeing you guys on, I remember, do you sing on stage, or is it just Luke?
I don't, just Luke. Yeah.
You
just
don't?
Luke.
So I must have seen Luke on stage, and I'm like, this guy's on stage worshiping God and his child died. Like, I just I didn't get it. And I remembered hearing you guys were so faithful in the hospital and so gracious. And then, then we experienced it and we had the same feedback. We were so kind and so gracious and all those things. And it's like, wow, I mean, you have two choices when you're in the hospital. You can be awful and angry, and there's no right or wrong, in the moments of grief that these things happen.
That's it.
But we were very gracious, and we were praying a lot, and we were worshiping, and we had all those things. So, and I know that you've been so amazing to reach out to since, because, I constantly message you like, okay, I'm really angry at God this week. Like, how did you deal with this? And I just, I look up to you guys. That's such a weird thing to say, but I do, and I just really am appreciative of you.
Yeah, I remember when I got your message, I saw it pop up, and I'd just gotten in the car, and I was like, I just need to get home before I open this, because I know it's going to be big from the start of just the words I could see. And
wow,
I just remember like that, like just takes you straight back to the moment, like to my loss, and just that intense grief in that. My heart was so broken for you. And as you mentioned in your post, I reached out to another friend who'd lost a baby and was like, I'm broken for you, for my friend. And well, we didn't actually really know each other, but we were Facebook friends.
No. I know, right? How funny.
But yeah, my heart's broken for you. And I was, glad to be able to give what helped for me in that time.
Yeah, so I met Aimee just a couple of days ago on the Central Coast. I just tried to organise a bit of a coffee catch-up to meet whoever was there, and it was so nice. And I was telling this other girl, Hannah, and I said, I reached out to Aimee when I found out I was losing Milli. And then Aimee said, well, I actually reached out to Hannah and said, this girl's just messaged me, and it's just so, but I loved that as well, because I was like, wow, I didn't even realise in that moment that I was putting my grief onto you. And that was going to bring up something for you, and then you've got, and then you had to go to somebody else, and it is the shittest club, but we have the best people in it. Like, it's I think just it shows,
and it shows why it's so important to have these people in your life that get it.
Absolutely. And I loved our little coffee, and I think the other day that coffee and chat with you guys was the first time I cry all the time on the podcast, and I cry for people, but I just it was really deep the other day, like seeing photos and seeing babies, like to meet the girls who had twins but lost one and one survived. That's it's just this wild world, and we just never know all the different depths of it. Hey,
it's wild. It's not fair.
Yeah. It's not at all. So, if anyone is listening from around the Central Coast or knows anyone that has lost, Aimee does run a really beautiful group there, and I love what you guys have created, and I do hope to do the same up here. I think it's super important, and it's lovely.
Yeah, it's really special to have each other.
So let's get into your story.
Yes.
I've been going back and listening to the podcast lately, and I really love this question. I think it's super powerful to kind of learn about who the person is. So the day we lose our child, we change, like from our DNA, our souls change, everything about us changes. So who was Aimee Taylor before she lost her baby?
As you know, I go to church, so I was a follower of Jesus, a wife, a daughter, a friend. I was working as an occupational therapist with kids who have pretty much been through what our babies have been through, but survived. So I was working with kids, adults, babies that had lifelong disabilities because of a traumatic birth situation. So I was doing that before. Yeah, and still kind of am a little bit different area now, but I was working with mainly kids with cerebral palsy. So, yeah. And I definitely have been changed from the inside out. So I am 100% a different person, exactly as you said now, in a good way as well. So,
yeah. Somebody said that to me the other day. They said, broken is not bad. And I was like, wow, that's such a good way of putting it. And I feel like lately, whilst I've been quite angry, I've found this angry version of myself, I'm trying to turn my pain and passion into a purpose, which is very, very cliche. But I do have this like newfound grit about me, like that I'm like, you know what, I actually really like this version of me.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Wow. And we were saying the other day at coffee, like we do change and we do become these different people, but I think there is this beauty about us as well, like because we just become different people, but a different version. And my therapist was actually saying the other day that kindness is sometimes a trauma response where we don't want to upset the apple cart, basically. And I feel like grief brings out we can still be kind, but there's just this like grit of like, you know what, I've got this other side of me now, and I feel like nothing is ever going to hurt me like losing my child did. So you kind of, you get this like, ugh.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right.
So random question, this might sound really silly. So is cerebral palsy only ever a birth injury?
Yeah, it's like a stroke essentially. So where there's been a cutoff to the brain. I could talk about that for a long time, but
yeah, well, because it was almost one of Milli's diagnoses, but I didn't understand what I meant. I just heard of cerebral palsy, and you just know what it kind of looks like typically, but I didn't realize that it's okay,
well,
cool.
actually,
that's
like
super interesting.
I think someone spoke about CMV in one of your podcasts recently, and that's a risk factor for cerebral palsy as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
In utero only? Like, would they have cut? So there's a girl that follows me on Instagram and I talk to her all the time. Her baby has CMV and is living, but they're unsure of the risks. A lot of it is deafness, I think. So hearing impairment.
Yeah.
Would she have already had cerebral palsy by now? Would she have had that at birth, or it can't be developed later?
Oh, I would say that she... so your friend hasn't had the baby yet. Is that what you're saying?
No, this girl on Instagram has had her child, and she's a couple of years old now. She has CMV.
She would know by now if there was if they were at risk. So typically she would probably been born at risk of cerebral palsy, and then not
was born
if everything was developing normal. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well,
so interesting. Yeah. And so are you still doing it a little bit, did you say, or was it hard to go back into that space once Lawson passed away?
I didn't find it as hard as I expected, but I have since gone out as a sole trader just so that I can be at home with my daughter a little bit more, and I mainly have an autistic caseload rather than a physical disability caseload. So there's kind of just what's more needed out in at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, you're a clever little chook, aren't you? I love that. And so, so you have a little girl now, and we'll talk about Banksie in a little bit, but let's go back to your conception of Lawson. So was falling pregnant easy for you guys?
Yeah, so we saw a naturopath 9 months before trying, just to get everything checked and sorted, and I went on a regime with her, and then so about 9 months later we started trying and fell like relatively easily. It was probably like 4 months of trying, and then we fell pregnant with him, and was like totally shocked that it had happened so quickly, because I don't know, I was just anticipating it to happen longer. And I told Luke I found out on a Sunday morning, and Luke had left for church already, and so then I had to like wait through the church service and like look at him being like, oh my gosh, you're gonna be a dad, and like you have no idea, and I know. And then I told him when we got home, but we were both so excited, and pregnancy was like a textbook perfect pregnancy. I had scans at like 7 weeks to do a dating scan, 12 weeks and 20 weeks. I actually also had a gender reveal scan in there somewhere. I think it was about 15 weeks. We went to just a private person to find out what gender the baby was, and he was a little boy. Which Luke was like very relieved. In the video of us opening the thing to find out, he literally says, phew. I'm like, oh my gosh, Luke, imagine if it was a girl. You can't do that.
Was he just nervous to have a daughter?
Oh, I think he just always pictured that he would like, he's a firstborn son, so he would have a firstborn son. So he had this like dream in his mind of what it would look like. And so, and he still had a firstborn son. So we still acknowledge that. And anyway, obviously now he wouldn't change that Banksie's a girl. He is obsessed with her. But I think, he kind of knew, had that expectation in his mind. So we found out that he was a boy. And all the scans were perfect. I remember in the 20-week scan, they were laughing at him, like saying he's so energetic and he's playing with his little willy. And so, they like, everything was really beautiful. I had a beautiful midwife. She's the same age as me. So I don't remember how old I was then, 26. So a young midwife, and I was doing like continuity of care. I think I had 2 midwives, but one maid midwife. So I had a lot of support and trust with her. And we had done a hypnobirthing course, Luke and I.
Yeah.
And so we were really excited to kind of have like a low intervention, go with the flow type pregnancy, birth and labour, and definitely had all those strategies.
In the hospital?
Yeah, in the hospital. And so the midwife was super supportive of that, in like, keeping the room dim and as little checks as possible. That kind of thing was what I really wanted. So it was also COVID, like lockdown, when I was pregnant. So majority of my pregnancy was like spent at home. I did lots of like long walks, because that's kind of all we could do in our LGA. Is that what it was called? LGA, local government area.
Local government,
that thing. Did lots of walks and working from home. So I feel like I rested a lot during Lawson's pregnancy. And wasn't like, not many people actually got to see me pregnant, because we were in lockdown up until like the couple of weeks before he was born. Nothing was really.
So what date would that have been? When is this 2020 or
2021? 2021 November. Yeah. He was born early November 2021. So I think about the only thing that I can like remember being not great, or not even not great, was like I wasn't even really sick in his pregnancy, like just a little bit, but nothing like I thought it would be. About 37 weeks, I think it was, I'd gone for quite a big walk, and I got home and I had a little bit of spotting in my underwear. And so I called the midwife, and the midwife was like, oh, like pop on a pad, and if you have any more spotting, then come into the hospital. And I didn't have any more spotting, so I didn't do anything about it. And that could have been nothing. but it was one of those things that weighed on my mind afterwards. Like, oh, if I had have gone, maybe they would have noticed, you know, as it all is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then do you want me to keep going into like,
please.
Like the labour stuff. So
I'm in. I'm listening.
On Lawson's due date, which was the 7th of November, we went to church in the morning and just feeling really normal. That night I decided to stay home from church because we had a night service and Luke went to church. And then at about midnight that night, I woke up to having some contractions, and it kind of happened pretty quickly. I think like they were about every 15 minutes apart. So I was just trying to sleep in between the contractions until they got a bit closer together. And about 5 a.m., I woke Luke up and was like, "We're having a baby, hun. This is getting a bit intense. I need your help. I'd like to go have a shower."
Wow.
So we went upstairs to have a shower, but mind you, I also, right before going upstairs, we were actually living with my grandparents at that point in time because our house was being built. And so we were hoping it would be finished. Yeah. We were hoping it would be finished before Lawson was born, but it wasn't. So I ran into the laundry and threw up everywhere, and I just left it there for my nan to deal with, poor thing, because I was just the pain.
Sorry, Nan.
Yeah. Pain of the contractions was too much, and then went up to the shower, had a shower, then threw up again, and at that point we were like, "Oh, let's call the midwife and see." On the phone, the midwife was like, "Oh,
is
you
that
sound
normal?
Like...
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
like to wait or the vomiting?
No, to vomit. Yeah.
I didn't
never been in labour.
I didn't for Banksie, but I think so because it was when it gets to the like nitty gritty bit, it's quite painful. So,
I bet.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's normal.
Yep.
I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah,
and I'm not a vomiter, so I was like, yeah.
I was expecting that I would if we laboured because I vomited my entire pregnancy. So for me, I was like, I will be vomiting until she comes out. Like, right? Yeah.
So different. They're also different.
And so you vomited out of the pain? Like it was like the intensity of pain. Wow.
Yeah. So called my midwife. She was like, "Oh, you seem like you're doing really well, like labouring at home. Do you want to stay at home for a little bit longer?" I was like, "Oh, okay." In my head, I'm thinking, I don't feel like I'm doing well. Like, this is intense.
Yeah.
So I stayed at home. So that was about 6. I laboured for another hour or maybe 2 hours. I called my mum to come at that point as well because I was like, I think we're going to go to the hospital soon. And we had just gotten an exemption that morning to have my mum there. Because of COVID, you could only have one person.
So good.
We had an exemption, so thank goodness. My mum was able to come.
Mm-hmm.
We then made our way, called the hospital at about 8, was like, I need to come in, made our way to hospital, and I think got there sometime around 9:30, 10 o'clock. I was like hypnobirthing, so I had headphones on with blindfold to try and like keep myself in the zone. I didn't want to see where I was going.
Love the vision. Wow. I've not heard this.
Oh, it's funny. It kept me going, like my labor, because often they say that when you go to hospital, your labor can slow down or your contractions can kind of slow down.
Okay.
But that didn't really happen for me, which is nice. I then was having so many contractions, it took so long to get from the car into the hospital. So I got a wheelchair, wheeled up to the room, and my midwife, she'd put some little like fake tea light candles, and the lights were dim and the bath was full. And so that was kind of what I had asked for. So she was beautiful. Lawson was, his heart rate was assessed when we got to hospital. So I didn't have the CTG, like the monitors on the belly. I just had the Doppler, intermittent Doppler monitoring for him.
And that was something that you had requested?
Yeah. Yeah, I was happy to have the monitors if there was something that made it seem more warranted, but I felt like it could have made intervention that wasn't necessary. Obviously, take that all back now because there was intervention that was necessary, but it was all picked up with the Doppler anyway. So she was checking after every contraction and in between contractions with the Doppler his heart rate. And on arrival, he had a really strong heartbeat. I think it was 130, something like that, with the accelerations and decelerations, which is what they're looking for a healthy heartbeat. So it was all good. I hopped in the bath and was labouring really well in there. And I think not long after just having his heart rate checked again and it was all good, I had felt like a big, like a pop, but not like huge. So like I just felt something weird in my belly, like a pop. And when I looked down in the water, there was like a gush of like bright red blood in the water. And I didn't think that was anything wrong. I was kind of just like, oh, okay, like something's happening.
Baby's coming.
Wow. In the report later, they said approximately 30 mils of blood at that point in time.
Okay, so not a whole lot.
Yeah, not a huge amount. The midwife then said to me, oh, did you feel something then? And I was like, yeah, I felt like a strange pop. She's like, okay, and she checked the heart rate, and at that point in time, the heart rate had gone down to, I think, about 90 or 100. So the midwife asked me to change positions. So I went from like a forward-facing position to kind of laying in my back in the bath, which is quite uncomfortable. And his heart rate came straight back up. So she was like, okay, we can just stay here for a little while. And everything seemed well again. When I think back to this moment, I felt like, well, in my head, I said, I want to get out of the bath. But my mum and Luke both told me that I didn't say that. So I was like, but I was saying it. I want to get out. But I was just saying it in my head and not out loud because it was just so, like my contractions were so close and it was really intense. It wasn't long. It was probably only another,
That makes me want to cry, just like thinking that you thought you said it and you didn't, and that you had both of them there, like saying that you didn't, and like that would just, oh, what a bizarre feeling.
I know, it is. And like, I think like just going back to that moment of like, I feel like I obviously knew something was wrong, but I didn't know the intensity of what it would be. Like I was like, something's wrong, I need to get out. I need to get checked. Like I knew that. But his heart rate did come back up after that. And so then I had another contraction and she checked the heart rate and the heart rate had gone down again and it was quite slow to recover. So she at that point was like, I think we need to get out of the bath. And I was like, good, we can get out.
Yeah, I've been telling you.
They helped me out of the bath and I think I had like 2 contractions on the way out of the bath, so it took quite a while as well to get out. I got up on the bed and there was like I didn't notice this but was told later when I got out of the bath there was like a trickle of blood running down my leg as I was walking towards the bed. So I think midwife was kind of like, something's not right, and got another midwife to come in. So then I got on the bed and had a examination, like a vaginal examination. That was my first one since I'd been there. Okay. And so I was I was 10 centimeters, so fully dilated, and his head was low in my pelvis, but she couldn't actually see it. She could just see my waters hadn't broken and it was kind of bulging. Okay. And so I guess like what had been happening is like my waters were concealing what was going on because it hadn't broken yet.
Right. Okay.
So I had the CTG on then, and I had another contraction, and in that contraction his heart rate dropped to pretty low and was really slow to recover. So the midwife said to me, we're going to have lots of people coming in the room now. It's about to get really flooded, and literally like not even a second, there was just people everywhere. And obviously I felt really scared of what that was. And I think like a lot of people have said that though, but I still didn't think, this is going to end in a baby dying. Like this happens. No. This is what they're made for. This is why we have teams to do these things.
Yeah.
So his heart rate was in the red zone. And they were like, we need to get baby out now. I got my legs thrown up into stirrups with a man's face between my legs, and vacuum. They tried vacuuming him out, but that failed. So they tried twice with that. And then I had an episiotomy, and then forceps delivered him. And I just remember thinking, like, feeling just like so afraid in that moment where, like, you know, there's a man head there, they've got these scissors, I'm squeezing Luke's hand, I've just had my eyes shut, like, oh my gosh, just get him out. And, you know, at that point in time wasn't having any contractions, so I felt like I'm failing, like they're telling me to push, and I'm like, I can't push, there's nothing, like nothing's helping me. So I was just pushing, like it just was nothing. And they're saying to me, are you having a contraction? You've got to push when you have a contraction. And it was just really stressful. And I was like, but I'm not having any contractions. Once they did once they put the forceps on, like, they were able to get him out really without the contractions, and just with me pushing into nothing. Yeah. And so in that moment, then they pulled Lawson out, popped him on my chest. It was only like a second. And I could see that he was very blue and floppy and didn't move, and his umbilical cord had no blood in it. So one of the things that Luke and I had wanted to do was delayed cord clamping. And so when they gave Luke the scissors, they're like, quick, cut the cord, because it was obviously an emergency. And he's like, no, we're doing delayed cord cutting. And I'm like, oh,
bless him. Bless him. He's like, I know what my wife and I wanted, and bless him.
I love it. I love that he did that. But then I was like, it's empty, just cut it. And so he quickly cut it. And then they took Lawson away straight away to the resus. But I still, like, just trying not to get emotional. I have told this story a lot, so I feel like I can detach. But when you think about it, like, I still can feel the weight of his body, like, on my chest, exactly what that felt like in that moment. And the elation of, like, I just had my baby, and again, not knowing what was going to go on, but like that, like I can still vividly picture the sliminess and like everything that he felt like in that moment. So after that, he was put on the recovery table. So we got in there at about 10 a.m. I think, and he was born at about 12:20. 20, I think it was 28 that they said. And he went over to the resus table, and there was lots of people around him. At that point in time, I was like to my mum, well, Luke was on the floor at that point because he had, like, kind of sort of fainted. I don't know if he actually fainted, but the stress of the moment, he's just like, I'm just done. And I think when I looked at my mum and Luke, like, I could tell that they were feeling a sense of, like, relief. Like, the baby's out, it's all good now. Like, that's the hard part's over.
Yeah. And you were okay. Like, I read something beautiful the other day, and it was, you know, why did dads feel so tired after mom gives birth? You know, they didn't do anything. And I'm like, that poor man stands there and watches so ususelessly he cannot save the love of his life and the love of his life that is about to be born. Yeah. And he would have been petrified.
Exactly.
He would have been like for the baby, like for Lawson, but also for you. Like, and I know how much he loves you. You know, you have an amazing husband from what I see. And like, I just think you guys are divine. And I just think he would have just been totally mortified in the whole scenario of everything. And you're screaming, and there's blood, and there's a baby, and there's people, and there's scissors, and that's so traumatic, extremely traumatic. Even if baby survives, that's traumatic, right?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And that's it. Like, I mean, we both did a lot of work, walking through that again, and in preparation for another birth, like going through that together and separately with our counsellors. So, like, it was something that was really traumatic, and we both, and my mum, like, we would have dreams and relive it, and if we had done things differently, and all this, you know, all the things that you do.
So Lawson's on the recess table, Luke's on the floor.
Looks on the floor.
Your mum is looking relieved.
My mum's looking relieved. I'm yelling at my mum saying, his name's Lawson, go and talk to him. Like, go and be with him on the recess table. Because I'm like, he's just got all these strangers around him, like, tell him that you're Nan. And so my mum went over. Obviously it was hard because there were so many people, but soon Luke followed. And then I think they put a CPAP machine, like the breathing thing, on him. And there was a little bit of spontaneous, like, respiratory effort from Lawson. So they then decided they would take him to special care nursery. Yeah. And so
were you in a public hospital?
Yeah. Public hospital. Luke went with him, and my mum stayed with me, which I'm, again, so grateful that I had my mum there. I was getting stitched up from the episiotomy. During that, when I was getting stitched up, it felt like I was there forever. Like, it was a really long time, and I was like, I just want to go. I don't want to be here. I want to go see the baby. Like, hurry up. And I know it's probably even longer when you're having, well, it is even longer when you're having a cesarean. But just that, like, eagerness,
I think it's a good, like, 45 minutes or something. Yeah.
So I was probably in that room for another hour 15, probably. I got stitched up. Then when I could finally get up, I almost collapsed myself because I needed to eat. And so then I had something to eat quickly. Then there was blood everywhere. So, like, let's just wash you off. Like, okay. Before I had get washed off, the head midwife came in and said, like, you know, Lawson was hypoxic at birth. So meaning there was a lack of oxygen to his brain. And so immediately I just said all these swear words. Like, I'm like, okay, that's all right though.
Because like, you work in the industry, so you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And so then I was like, but it's all good. Like, he's got the best mum, you know, for if he's going to have a disability and need a wheelchair, like, I'm his girl. Like, that's kind of like, how could it be more, like, what a more perfect scenario. So I was definitely like, whoa, but yeah, fine. Hadn't cried, I wasn't feeling much stress, just that I wanted to be with him and Luke. So then they wheeled me up to not NICU or special care, whatever it is. And in that time when he had gotten there, they had, I think they did I don't know if it was a blood test or like a test on the umbilical cord gases. I think you can test that. They had, that blood test had shown that he had really low pH levels and high lactate levels. And so the pediatrician explained it to us later on as, like, when you have high lactate, it's like when you go for a run and you get the burning feeling in your muscles, like they're exhausted and they can't actually move anymore at a certain point. And so his lactate level, so if there was going to be an adverse reaction, the lactate level is between 3 and 10, and Lawson's lactate level was 17. So it was, like, well and truly above. Like, they want it under 3. But there's a pretty big difference in that. And so a pediatrician told us at this point, as soon as he saw the bloods, he was like, how is this baby alive right now? Like,
wow.
Like, kind of immediately knew that we wouldn't be bringing him home. But in the same breath, he's looking at Lawson and being like, you know, he's breathing and he's holding on. And so, like, we have to fight for this baby because he's obviously fighting himself. And just so beautiful. And I'm so grateful that he did hold on. So I think I must have got up to the special care around, like, maybe 1:45-ish. So quite a fair bit after he'd been born. And when I got there, he was just, Luke was sitting in the corner of the room and his little body was, like, far away on a table with a plastic sheet over him. So I was immediately like, what's going on? Is he alive? Like, and they're like, no, I think they were warming him up. I don't know. They were doing something. Yeah. Warming him with that.
Yeah.
And I was also kind of like, well, why aren't they doing more? Like, surely there's more that they could be doing at this point in time.
Yeah.
He was incubated with like a tube down his throat, and he had the things in his umbilical cord. And yeah, we sat there like watching them for some time, and have so many regrets about not just like going up and being with Lawson in that moment. I mean, I don't know whether they would have let me, but we sat there. The pediatrician came over to us at some point in time and was like, we've called the NETS team. So I think it's newborn peds something transport team. So they a helicopter. Yeah. So they told us that the helicopter was on its way to pick up Lawson, and they were going to take him to somewhere. I'm like, okay, like that's all good. And he's like, but like things aren't looking good right now, and we're just trying to figure out, what's going on and what we need to do. I'm like, okay, that's okay. Like keep going. Yeah. And then it came to about
and you still at that point I'm sure you were still not thinking death. Like you're still just like, okay, cerebral palsy, brain injury, like you do, you're like, okay, I've got to put a ramp in at home, like
exactly.
You're just thinking of you're thinking of all the things I got to do to bring this baby home, but death is never where your brain goes at that point.
That's like, it. Definitely not. No. Definitely not. It hadn't crossed my mind. So Luke had been like pretty much crying the whole time. He was just like an absolute mess. So I think like, I don't know whether that was just obviously the stress. That's how he was handling it. I was just like, again, brave face. Everything's fine. Like we're going to bring him home. So the pediatrician came over and said, like, would you like to go and see him at this point? Like, yes, we would love to. So no one was working on him at that time. The NETS team was probably like 15 minutes away from arriving. And so we went over to say hello. So kind of the first time we got to see his face properly, because, when he was on my chest, it was just like a blur for a second, and then he was gone. And he was beautiful, the most little, beautiful redhead ginger, which was such a shock. Such a shock to Luke and I, because we both have like mousy brown hair, and I mean Luke has a little bit of ginger in his beard, but we were just like, only God knew how much we needed that hair in our life. So we were
is there red somewhere in your family? Like where does that come from?
My mum had like strawberry blonde hair as a baby, but no, like not really, not that we know of. Like we were trying to track it back to someone and couldn't. But it was really special.
Absolutely.
So, we went over to see him, and we were just stroking his face, stroking his arms, and I like assumed this was for us to say goodbye, but I didn't again think that in the moment. And so I was praying, and I think I said the first thing, I was like, oh, hi baby, like it's mama. And as soon as I spoke, his little eyes just struggled to open, but he opened them, and he held them open for like a split second. Like one little eye was like a bit closed and the other one was open, and then he closed them again. And a beautiful midwife actually somehow captured that moment. So we have that photo of, and I think, I don't know, I just felt like he can do it. Like he wants to be here with us. Like he's trying so hard. But in the same breath, I was like, if you can't do this, like it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, Mummy wants you to be here, but I know that you might need to go.
You're struggling.
And that's okay. And we'll be okay. And so we're praying, and I was like, come on, God, like we've seen you do miracles before. And at the same time I'm saying, but I know that you're still a faithful God no matter what happens. So I'm saying this as I'm praying, and we're singing, like, all my pregnancy I had sung like a Christian song that's called Waymaker, and every time I was feeling anxious in my pregnancy, I would sing Waymaker, Miracle Worker, even when we don't see it, you're working. And so we were singing this over his little body, and it was a really beautiful moment. And then it was interrupted really quickly because the Nets team were there. And so we were like, okay, you've got to go sign this thing and sit down. And we were like, okay. So that, I don't know, maybe we got half an hour, maybe 20 minutes of that with him. And the Nets team arrived and they were doing a blood transfusion. And so they had started the blood transfusion, and I could tell as we were watching on that it's not going well, that something had gone wrong with that. I don't know, like it wasn't the blood transfusion's fault, but I think something to do with the acidity kind of just sent things a bit downhill. And so the pediatrician came over to Luke and I and was like, you know, like, we're doing everything we can and we'll keep working on him, but there's going to come a point that we'll have to stop working. And we were both like, no, you can't. Like, he's coming home. You have to keep trying. Like, it's like we're trying to stabilize him to send him on the helicopter, but we just can't stabilize him. And I think then the pediatrician turned around, and then I heard someone yelling out, there's no heartbeat. Like, there's no heartbeat. And they were doing CPR, and then they yelled out time of death, blah, blah, blah. And we're just sitting there watching it like, is this for real? Like, is this our life? And it didn't feel real. It just felt like I'm watching on from someone else's story. Like
an out-of-body experience almost.
Exactly. And especially with that, like, the yell, which probably wasn't appropriate for her to yell that out, but the yelling out of no heartbeat, watching him have CPR.
And time of death?
And time of death. Like, yeah. And so it literally felt like a movie. And again, I still had, like, I was numb. I just felt like I obviously was like, what the heck? But it still didn't feel real to me at this point. So in that moment, then Luke's more hysterically crying and I'm rubbing his back and I'm like, it's okay, it's okay. We had asked to call in our pastor because they had said we could get a chaplain, and we were like, can we get our pastor to come in? So she came in, and my husband's parents. So we'd asked if the grandparents could come. My dad lived in Queensland at the time, so unfortunately he couldn't get there quick enough. So my mum was there and Luke's parents, and we went to this little room. They then kept the ventilator on for us so that it could feel like he was breathing still, which was really trippy, and I don't know if I would want that again, because I still then couldn't come to terms with that he wasn't alive because his lungs were moving up and down. And so I'm like, he's breathing though, like he might just come back to life. Like if he comes on my chest and like he feels me, he might just, like, you know, this might be the thing that he needs, which is very naive of me.
I look back at photos and I'm like, how did I not see the sickness of my child? Like, you just, it is, you feel like naive, but it's just so much hope.
I know, that's it. And you've got to have it. You can't not. Like, that's the only reason you get through, because you have this hope. And so we were holding him, and I had him on my chest, and my body was so hot. Like, I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm sweating. I can just feel like heat radiating out of me. And they were telling me that my body is trying to heat him up because he's so cold. So my body is trying to do its job and heat up its baby. And so it's just this, like, heartbreaking of, your body's being a mother and doing what it is meant to do when, you know, it doesn't have a baby that it's going to be able to actually care for. And, so we were with our family, and after that we went back to a room, and they put us in a birthing suite room up the back, which is for people that have lost a baby. So we weren't, thankfully, in a maternity ward with other babies crying, and we were so far up the back I couldn't hear any women labouring.
That's good.
And it was kind of then like, well, like, now what? Like, I still hadn't cried at that point. I was just, like, still in shock. They like changed him, like put some clothes on him, and he was very like stiff, and that I definitely, looking back at videos, can see that I'm emotional in that moment, but I still hadn't had this like my baby's gone, guttural, you know, cry moment. And so Luke's brother came to visit at that point, and then we were told we can stay as long as we want or as little as we want, and we were like, okay, we'll stay one night, we'll get our friends to come and visit him tomorrow. And so we kind of started doing the phone calls around to our friends and letting them know. A bunch of our friends had known that he was in NICU or special care, and so knew things weren't great, but they didn't know the extent of how bad it was. And again, like, we have lots of friends that baby has had, you know, had to go and have heart surgery immediately, or things like that, where you think it could be really bad, but it's not. And so we had to then do the phone calls, which every phone call, as you know, it just takes so much out of you. And one phone call would take so long. And, you know, we had one couple answer, and they were like, congratulations, mamas, like mum and dad. And they were so happy for us. And then we had to like shatter their hearts as well. And that was just so, like, I'm really glad that they answered it in that way, because I'm like, we are mum and dad and we do want to be celebrated, but like, oh, ouch. Like, you know.
And like you said, you had to shatter theirs as well. Exactly. It's like your heart's breaking, and then you've got to break theirs, and then they feel bad because they've just said that, and it's just this like, and you probably had this as well. We did posted on social media about it, and then people weren't reading the post, and so we were still getting text messages like, congratulations, beautiful, like, and it was like, oh my word, like, we still had. Like, and then you're getting parcels arriving because people just knew you had the babies. Then you're getting gifts, and you're like, congratulations, gifts for the baby. And
it's wrong.
It's wrong. It's just like it's constant reminder and heartbreak.
That's it. So then we went to bed. They pulled out like a little bed for Luke, and I had the hospital bed. And like, I think they offered us something to go to sleep, but I was like, I am exhausted. Like, I'm going to pass out. Like, I'm upset, but I'm going to pass out. So Lawson was next to us. I think we spent some time cuddling him and taking photos of his toes and bum crack and all the things.
Little bum crack.
We do, And then we both were exhausted, so we went to sleep. And I woke up at about 2 a.m. and I just had this like overwhelming like hit of reality. Like, it just like washed over me, and I went to the toilet, and then, you know, I was sore and there was blood everywhere still, like I was bleeding, and I could barely sit down because of the episiotomy. So my vagina, sorry, too much information, but my vagina was literally black.
Fuck.
So sore. And it went black for a long time down my legs. Like, it was pretty intense. And
which is just like a constant reminder of the trauma that your body went through to get your child out.
Yeah. And so I sat on the toilet, and I just lost my crap. Like, it was that guttural, like, could not breathe, like, just intense scream crying of like, why? And so that obviously woke Luke up, and he came in and he's like, what's wrong? He's like, well, actually, you know, I know what's wrong. But like, and I think he even said he felt a little bit of relief, because he kind of thought I was a bit in denial about what had happened because I hadn't processed it. So then we sat up then pretty much to the morning with Lawson, just crying and holding him and singing with him, and Luke hopped in the bed with me, and we put him next to us, and just like a beautiful moment, but like a soul crushing, like, this is what it should have been like, but with you alive. Shit. And you know that, it's a bit ridiculous. So then the next day, they were doing like some tests on me. We invited our life group. That was our life group at church at the time. So a bunch of friends and our family to come, and it was just a steady stream of people, person after person, all day long. We were planning to go home that night. And so it was person after person, and, Lawson had started the night before. He looked quite, he still had a little bit of colour in him, and his lips were still pink, and by the next day they had started to go quite dark. And so we, warned all our friends before they came, he's not looking as lively as he was. But they all came and, held him and cuddled us. And,
I
was thinking, when you allow someone to touch your wounds, and your scars, what a beautiful thing that is, to invite someone into that space. And so I think, if I didn't allow people to hold him, to come into that moment, to feel the pain and the grief that we were feeling, and to see us in that moment and cry with us, I just don't think it would have felt real.
And I feel like the support of those people becomes deeper
100%.
because they felt it with you and they saw it. And if there's one regret that I do have, and I don't have many, but I do wish no one could hold her until she passed, but only Dylan and I were in that room for that last hour. And once she passed, we really got scared and just left. And I wish we spent more time with her once she'd passed, and had more people come and have people hold her and spend more time in that space. I really have a lot of regrets around that.
I can totally understand that. I think it wouldn't.
It's so. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, go.
When you start to see their color change and all those things, it's just oh my gosh, I can't see this. It's just this hard to fathom. And we had seen her change color, and I think that was where we kind of were we had 6 days with her, and so we were we need to get out of this hospital. And so
totally.
But that is definitely one regret and I remember your message saying let your friends hold her and let them feel that heaviness and let them feel that. And I guess we had, it was a different circumstances, but I love that you had that. I love that. I love that your friends felt that.
I think it's a very an invitation to hold a dead baby or a child that isn't living. It's pretty painful. And so we are just so grateful to our friend, the gratitude for them for coming into that moment. It blows me away. It makes me emotional to think that we have such beautiful community that they would sit there in our grief with us and literally hold someone that is not alive. It's huge.
And I think that is so powerful, because I think we probably thought that people wouldn't want to do that. Maybe I don't know what we thought at the time, but Dylan and myself ended up going to the funeral home a few days later because we needed to see her again fully healed, and we needed to see her not in such in the way that we left her in the hospital. And Dylan's mum came. I said, did you want to come and hold Milli? And that was, I almost choke up now. It was actually so hard it was hard to invite somebody to hold my child. That was also a part of it. It's so beautiful that they got to hold her, but also I also didn't want anyone else to touch her. I'm I don't want anyone else to hold her, but I knew that and when I asked Dylan's mum to, she was yes, almost screamed it, she wanted to hold her grandchild. And it's and then at the end of the funeral, my dad came up and was oh, do you think I'd be able to see her? And I was oh my word, yeah. And he ended up changing his mind and he didn't. But I had this guilt of, far out, I didn't even think people might want to see her. Or, it's just, again, there are things that I would have done differently, and things that I guess that's probably a regret as well, not offering more people to see her after she'd passed. I just didn't think.
Oh, I know. But I think for you as well, you have just opened up this podcast space, and you're allowing people into your vulnerability here. And there's actually been studies on like rats done that show like the dopamine level thing that lights up in their brain when they meet a new partner, like a new love interest. The only other time it shows up is when they're in like trauma together or doing something dangerous together. And so, you know, when you allow someone to kind of be in that trauma with you, it lights up something special in your brain and creates a connection like between both brains. So I think like particularly with your husband, like going through that with Dylan and allowing each other to be in the trauma together, like, and allowing each other to feel the feels, like it lights up something in our brain because we're actually designed to do things together. Like we are made to be in community. And so, I mean,
wow.
Then I guess so we had everyone come visit. It was so exhausting. Like I was just shattered by the end. And I was like, and I haven't held Lawson. Like everyone else has held him all day long. But like I just want time with him now. And so we decided we would spend another night and we would just have him pretty much to ourselves the next day. And as lots of people in your podcast have said, that last day of like walking away and leaving your baby behind and not bringing them home or leaving them with someone else, like it's just unimaginable. And I guess I just had to remind myself that like he actually wasn't there. He was in his new home, which I believed that he was in heaven. And so I'm not leaving him in the hospital, I'm leaving him in the arms of Jesus. And a beautiful lady midwife held him as we walked out, which was so lovely. But we walked out, we hysterically cried our way out, not walked out. We had our mums holding us both up as we exited, and had all our friends waiting for us at the end of the hospital. So like when we came outside, and we were the same as you and Dylan, where we needed noise at home. So they came and had pizza with us until we kicked them out. And we're like, we want to go to bed, which was pretty early. But having that house full of noise, because we were so ready to have the baby noise in the house, was really important. If we had gone home to silence, that would have killed me. The missing piece would have been even more noticeable in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you want me to keep going? Like I can talk about what they ended up happening.
So I'd love that.
Yeah. So we had some tests done. We made the like hard decision to. We decided we would like an autopsy, which like makes me feel sick thinking about. But we decided we needed that for like reassurance for the next baby. They had said that they think something went wrong with the placenta, but they weren't 100% sure that that was it.
Okay.
We had a meeting with the hospital on our wedding anniversary, so on the 30th of December. So we had a meeting with the hospital on our wedding anniversary. Great way to spend it. And they let us know that his placenta was in the 10th percentile, I think, for size, and that is like critically small for a baby in a 40-week gestation, and a baby that like Lawson was pretty average size. So they were like, that is a critically small placenta. The blood flow between me and the placenta was really poor. So they commented on the placenta being like misshapen, and it had some things going on because the blood flow was so poor between me. And there was hypercoiling. So like say like the umbilical cord should have, you know, those blue kind of wrappy lines around it. It should have like 3 within 5 centimeters, maybe, I don't know, 10 centimeters. And mine had like 10 within that. So it was really, really tight. So not much blood was getting from the placenta to Lawson.
And so could a scan have showed any of this? Or well, your last scan was at 20 weeks, right?
Yeah, and everything from what they said was normal. They say that normally the way that Australia picks up on things with placenta issues is a blood test, and my blood test all came back normal for that.
Okay.
If you look at like America's research, like they are doing something that's called like measuring the placenta, and so they estimate the placenta's volume by taking a couple of measurements. And this guy's made this app that you can put the measurements into, and it tells you what the percentile it is in.
Okay.
That was not offered, and when I asked my obstetrician about it later, he laughed at me like, "That's stupid. You can't measure your placenta." Thing. Like, okay, great, okay. Cool.
Okay,
cool.
So, is there no other way that they can measure a placenta? Like, so, you know, could you? So, for example, for Banksie's pregnancy, did you go in? Yeah, were you able to have reassurance? Sorry, I'm sure you're going to get there, but yeah, can you have reassurance that the placenta is fine? Is it a genetic thing? Is it something that could happen reoccurring?
Well, when we got the test results back, so it said like it's their expert opinion that under normal circumstances, also there was also a little bit of blood clotting that showed that it had pulled away. So the placenta abrupted. It was only a really small abruption, like only just pulled away and stopped the oxygen for a little bit. But the expert opinion said that under a normal circumstance, a baby with normal reserve, it would have no issue. But a baby that has like little reserve, like Lawson, then can't actually function. I think my laptop's about to die. Sorry, I'm just going to text Luke and say, can you bring the charger?
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Yes. Sorry.
So if if that abruption had have happened, but the placenta was normal, there would have been no issue.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit of a rush to get him out, but he would have come out okay. That's what they expect.
And the blood that came out when you were in the bath, was that the abruption, do you think? Or what?
So when they broke the waters, it was like a bloody colour. So showing that, the abruption kind of had happened and he'd lost too much, I guess, too much blood. I don't know. The other thing, so to answer your question about like genetic, the other thing that expert said was that they emphasised that the maternal blood flow to a baby is in that condition is no way related or a fault of mine. They actually wrote that in the report. It is not the mother's fault, which like I needed to hear that because I was carrying a lot of guilt around my placenta failing Lawson and like me, the job that like my body is doing failed my baby. And so I felt a lot of guilt about that. And
do you want to run and get the charger?
I might need to.
I can see you're stressing about it. Yeah.
I'm like,
that's okay.
Luke, I need the charger.
This is an unedited podcast, so this little bit's going to be in there.
Sorry. I thought it would have been fine.
No, that's right. I was just talking and I was like, this is an unedited podcast, so that little bit is going to stay in there.
It's brilliant. No, it's brilliant.
There's been times where I'm like, Dill, can you close the door? Or I'm like, I need to put the fan on.
I love it. No, yeah, he will pop in. Luke's getting it because it's upstairs. Sorry. I thought it would have been. It's pretty good with battery normally.
I want to comment also when you were saying that you guys were singing Waymaker, so that was one of our songs as well, and we played it at Milli's funeral. Yeah, and every time it comes on, Dylan sings it often, and he's not much of a Christian worship singer, of course, but I'm pretty sure the morning, I'll have to go back and find that video, in that morning before we went in to have her, he was standing in the lounge room just being silly with his hands in the air and singing, and I'm sure it was Waymaker.
That's amazing. Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good song. And especially when you're feeling like you lack that hope, like it gives you that Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about the genetic thing. So what they told me to do for Banksie's birth or for Banksy's pregnancy was, once I found out I was pregnant, to have a scan and make sure that the baby was in the uterus. And then they said there's a little bit of evidence that taking aspirin every day can help with blood flow. So that was kind of the only thing that they said. And it was enough for me to feel like, okay, I'm doing something different.
Yes.
Like this is different. When I came off the aspirin, because you have to come off it at 36 weeks because it's a blood thinner. And so if you have a cesarean or something like that, obviously you don't want to be on blood thinners. And so I came off that at 36 weeks. And when I said to the obstetrician, who was a different one at that point, just like my obstetrician was off sick and I was just through the public system again, they said, oh yeah, come off it. We don't know if it does anything anyway. It probably doesn't. And I was like, this is the one thing that I'm holding on to giving me a live baby. And so that's kind of all they said.
It's I will preface that we're not doctors, but I do know that in the IVF world, aspirin is quite commonly used, and I don't know why, so people need to speak to their doctor about that, but aspirin is quite commonly used early in pregnancy for, I'm not sure what reason, but I love my IVF specialist, and he's my surgeon for my endometriosis as well. And so if he's telling people to take it, I'm going to say it's good. So I think you did good. Yeah,
exactly. Well, I got Banksie here, so she is here and healthy. So that's what I cared about. And the only other thing they said was looking at blood flow in scans through the placenta. So I was constantly like, please tell me what the blood flow is doing. Tell me what the blood flow is doing after that with her.
Because I thought in scans they see there's like blue and red highlighting stuff, and they say, that's your blood flow, or that's your umbilical cord, or that's this, and which was all documented as normal at the 20-week scan. Had I have maybe had a scan at 36 weeks or something, maybe it would have been picked up at that point in time. I guess for me, one of the things that was really hard was that I was like, why didn't Lawson tell me? Like, why didn't you tell me that you were struggling? You were having a hard time breathing, but like you kept growing and you were an average size baby. So you didn't slow down your growth, or, I didn't notice a reduction in movements. Just those things that I'm like, why didn't you make more of a fuss? Like, well, he's just such a polite little boy that, like, so that was really, and then I guess, coming to terms with that, like, it's not my fault. And there's nothing that I could have done or known differently to get him here. I think, and I said, listening, was it Hannah and Aimee that you spoke to that had the placenta abruption recently? Yes.
On your podcast, listening to her podcast gave me healing in the fact that she did have monitoring constantly, and she still lost the baby. And because I had one of the things was like, well, maybe if you had more monitoring, which I did have for Banksie, a lot of monitoring, but like that was always weighing on my mind. And it doesn't necessarily mean nothing really equals a live baby all the time. So no.
And sadly, I had a friend message me the other day, and she was like, you're just so strong, and you're this, and your faith is amazing. And I was like, and we don't feel it in that moment. Of course, you're like, oh, I'm not. Yeah. And I just said to her, I feel like God said to me, I need you in this space, and I'm so sorry, you're going to have to walk this out.
Wow.
And like that, I just literally said that 2 days ago. Yeah. And it was like, she just said, whoa. Yeah. Like she's a Christian, and it was like, God needs us in this space. And sadly we have to walk it to be there. And sometimes I say, God, I don't want to have a big voice. I don't want to be that person, but we were chosen to be it, and it sucks. And Lawson was chosen for that reason as well. And I hate it. And Milli was, they're just such powerful little tiny souls that just came here and made this massive mark on the world.
Yeah.
And,
I feel like he's definitely changed lots of people, both Milli and Lawson. So they're amazing.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for Lawson, I wouldn't have known who to reach out to that day, you know, like, so he helped us massively now, you know, he helped us so much by having such amazing parents and you guys and you being so faithful. Like, honestly, I just remembered that. Like, I didn't even know your story. I didn't know how he died. All I knew was Danielle was a client in my salon and she was talking about her friends at church that were so faithful and so kind and so gracious, and to just 3 years later remember that in an instant of
amazing.
a second and be like, I need that woman, you know, I need to speak to her. I need to know, how am I going to breathe? And so and you do breathe again, you know. Don't know how, but I'm only not even 7 months in, and I still struggle to breathe some days. But
it's tricky. And I think sorry, go.
So I'd love to ask you, in terms of autopsy, I know that's such a challenging decision to make. Are you glad you did it, and did you get the answers that you wanted from that?
I'm glad we did it, definitely, because it would have been something that I would have questioned a lot, even though we did get answers from the placenta. But we know that Lawson was a perfectly healthy baby. The only things that came back from the autopsy was like I think it's called a hematoma on the brain. Like, so a blood bubble between the scalp, and that was caused from the vacuum when they tried to get him out with the vacuum. And so they said they're confident that had nothing to do with his death. And so I think it made me feel like, okay, like, he was fine. There's nothing else. It's just the placenta issue. That was a thing. Yeah. So, I do feel glad. As awful as it is to think about. Sorry.
Yeah, is no, that's okay. Sorry, I think there's a bit of a delay. Is the placenta, the testing of the placenta and stuff, separate to an autopsy? That might be a really silly question, but
yes. So they sent the placenta away and a blood test of, like, the blood of my placenta away to get tested, and then Lawson separate.
Yeah.
But they were able to give us
and the reason
both
I asked
at
that
the same time. Sorry, both results at the same time.
Okay, yeah. And did it take a long time? Because I know a lot of people say that, like, well, there's a lot of talk in Australia at the moment, and I'm sure you've seen it. And I think Hannah was actually interviewed last week just after our podcast about the delay and time it's taking to get autopsy results back. Because especially if somebody needs to wait, like, oh, we can't have another child until we know, like, my goodness, that's so much stress.
We got our interim results on the 30th of December, so only 2 months later. It was our interim results, and they said we don't think much would change from this because it was quite straightforward, and they didn't find anything. And then I think it was like 15 months later or something that we got the final results. So at that 30th of December meeting, they gave us the results, and then they said, we're happy for you to start trying for another baby when you feel ready, at that December one.
Wow. Wow, that's so big. And so, and the reason I asked that question is because, again, I'm hoping the podcast is a space for people to learn about, I guess, things that can go on in pregnancy and that space, and hear other stories where they're similar, but also if it's something that in, God forbid, 3 years' time, somebody thinks back and goes, oh my gosh, I listened to that, and this girl got an autopsy and she thought this of that decision. And so it's like preparing people for what decisions they could make.
Totally.
Or somebody else might be in that space and not know what to do. And, well, I think, maybe you could have an autopsy and you might get your results, knowing it's going to take 15 months, but sometimes they come back inconclusive, which I know is really hard for people. I know that's really challenging.
Yeah, I feel lucky that we have answers for sure.
Yeah, and so post Lawson passing, did you guys have a funeral? What was your plans for him afterwards?
Yeah, so it was COVID. So you were only allowed 10 people at a funeral if you were unvaccinated, which I was unvaccinated. So I couldn't have been at the funeral if that was the case. And so we called up around a bunch of funeral homes and said, could you organise this and just drop it to an outdoor space and not be there, and we'll just organise everything else. Like, you just organise the body. Here's the people who were like, no, we're not being dodgy. But one beautiful company were like, don't say anything else. We will look after it, but don't say anything. Like, we're not talking about what this
just
is.
Don't tell me the details.
Yeah, we will drop him to your funeral service, and then whatever happens on site, that's on you. Like, so we had we went to a beautiful tree where we got married under. So it's a huge fig tree, and we got married under there, and so we decided to have Lawson's funeral under there, and we felt that it was fitting that his story started with the uniting of Luke and I in marriage, and so that
goosebumps.
His story finishes there too. And so we had it was a pretty small funeral still there, and then we had a celebration service at the church where we invited any of the church members to be a part of that. So that was really beautiful. We were really lucky to, in COVID, still be able to remember him and celebrate him in that way with some loopholes.
That's so good. So good. And that's so there should be some loopholes in such circumstances.
Exactly.
Like, I love that somebody finally said yes for you.
Oh, I know. That's it. Even the hospital with letting all our friends in one after the other, like, that was breaking so many rules, but they just did it and they were flipping amazing.
Yeah.
So
that's why they did the one after the other. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a lot of people now. And it definitely went against their rules, but they still let them in. So
that's great.
We're really grateful. And I think then we just had such amazing support with the funeral. We didn't have to lift a finger. Like, we just told our friends what we wanted, and it was done, and it was the most beautiful day and the most beautiful send-off for him that we could imagine. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so special, and that's such good advice. Like, I was the same. We also did nothing, and I'm sure most people in that space would just step in and do that, but to have everyone take over and organise the funeral, and you not have to even think about much because there's just questions you never thought you'd have to answer.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Exactly.
I love that. And so then how long, is there anything else you want to say just in this space in relation to that part? Because I do want to go into conceiving Banksie and then what pregnancy after loss was like for you. And
no, I don't think so. I think just, I think like being, I guess, like in the space of like being helpful and just like being able to sit with someone in their grief. And I think Lawson has taught me how to be a better person, because I feel like I can sit in uncomfortable spaces now and just be like, just be there. You don't have to say anything, and you just need to be present. I think for us, it was like we just needed people to, say his name and be around us, show us that they cared, like that it was real. Because I think if we didn't have that, and through my support group, I've met a lot of girls that do not have support from their family. They don't talk about their baby. It's like it didn't happen. And I can't even imagine having that. Yeah, not having it feel like such a reality. Like, everyone knows Lawson, and they know that he's our firstborn, and he's a redhead, and that we love the colour orange, love hearts, and that butterflies remind us of him. And so we get sent butterfly pictures of him all the time.
Oh, I love that.
And, just like 2 days ago, a friend posted a photo. She's been on a run, and there was a butterfly dancing with her, and she felt like it was Lawson, and she sent it to me. And I know that you have the same for Milli. And so just having that, having people to just make you feel like you're not alone. Yeah. It's really beautiful. That's kind of all.
I love that. And
we can talk about things.
No, that's okay. But I say to people all the time, like when they're like, I don't know what to say to my friend, and I'm like, ask their name, talk about them, say you thought of them. Yeah. Like, I love, people just send me pink sunsets and pink roses and pink anything, or they'll see a business name that's Milli and Me or Milli and this, and I just it's so precious. And you know, like I now know why you did the little orange love heart. So that's going to, the orange hearts, that's going to be something that's going to prompt me now for you and Lawson. And I truly believe our babies give messages to other people for you to reach out to them. And, so often I know that people have baby wren, like the wren birds, or they have hummingbirds or whatever, the, you know, everyone's little messages are. And I just love that. And so, I think that's really good advice, that just say the baby's name and reach out and say you're thinking of them. And it's so important. And practical help that you guys had. I'm sure the church would have done meal trains. That's a standard.
We had our bills paid for. Like, we just had everything, cleaning. The community, like, blown away by them, and just people just being present, you know, just whatever they
cleaning is such a big one.
Oh, totally. Because I'm recovering. Like, I could barely walk. You know,
I do want to talk to you about your recovery as well. Yeah,
like, I think that was
I want to talk to you about your postpartum.
Yeah.
Sorry, we have such a delay. We need to you go, just talk.
My recovery, I guess, like, it was pretty horrific. Like, I couldn't sit down. I felt like I couldn't walk. I was also exhausted doing the things like planning a funeral and XYZ. I, like, in the same breath that, you know, you're depleted, like, physically and emotionally. And so a lot of the days the same as you've said, like, I just stayed in bed. Like, I didn't get out of bed. I didn't answer the door. I didn't go anywhere. And then other days I'd feel okay to get up and do that. I think, like, comparing my postpartums, I did have a much better birth with Banksie. But, like, just that recovery with a baby is so different to recovery without a baby. Like, if I had Lawson, I think those things just wouldn't have even mattered. Because I know that's the case with Banksie. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think you have a beautiful appreciation now, because had you have not experienced what happened with Lawson, you might, and I know that a lot of mums do, are like, oh, I had this, and they complain about and now, like I said before, it's still traumatic even if your baby lives, but, you know, we can, because I know for me, I was like, I do not want an episiotomy, I do not want forceps, I do not want any of those things. I didn't even get to have a labor, but, you know, those were a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Now, if I had the option, give me the episiotomy, give me the forceps, and just give Milli. You give me Milli, right? You know, It's like all the things we did and didn't want, it just mean nothing anymore.
Nothing. 100%.
And I know that I've actually quoted you before saying that I have a friend who says, when I say, you know, I'm sure postpartum with a baby is hard, and you're like, trust me, postpartum without a baby is harder.
Yeah, it is. And it's a different hard as well. It's a different, because you're longing for the hardness that someone else is having. You know, you're longing for that. That's why you have a baby. Like, you signed up for it. You know that's coming. Do you want me to talk about Banksie?
Yeah.
Quickly? I know we don't have much time. I don't want to take too much more of your time.
No, they can go for as long as you want.
We started, I had planned to wait like 6 months, but when we got the all clear in December, I'd already had my period at that point in time, and the next month I was like, I just want to start trying in case it takes forever. Like, you know, I just want to get, I just feel like we've got an empty hole in our hearts and a place to fill, and not that they would replace, but just to fill our broken, you know, hearts. And so we started trying then, and we actually fell pregnant that first go, which was incredible. And also, like, I didn't realize how much I needed it, because when I took the test, I realized how much I really wanted it to happen now. Whereas at the start, I was like, let's just try. And, like, hopefully within 6 months it would happen. I was like, no, I need this now. And we were pregnant, and we actually found out we were pregnant on Lawson's 3-month anniversary. So it was like this bittersweet kind of moment of like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. But, like, we felt a bit guilty to Lawson that, like, this meant we were moving on, which it didn't, but we've had that guilt. And so we actually went and told our parents both on that day, even though I think I was only 3 weeks pregnant. We were like, we just have to tell them so that they can, like, celebrate with us and also cry with us over the 3 months without Lawson. And I think so Luke and I had already both had a counsellor that we were seeing before giving birth to Lawson. So he was able to walk us through Lawson, walk us through that. And we already knew and trusted him, and he cried with us, and it was beautiful. And so then we were able to also walk with him through the pregnancy with Banksie, which was really lovely. And I also had I got a special birth trauma psychologist as well, and I got that with the Medicare, the 10 Medicare things.
Okay.
So I had just to kind of walk through the things surrounding birth. I think that the futility of knowing that you have a living baby inside of you today, but that you might not have a baby inside of you tomorrow, is enough to drive a human absolutely insane. But all I knew, I knew that I just had to have hope. And, instead of thinking, I almost felt like I was being mocked by being pregnant. I don't know if that makes sense. Like mocked by death, or the threat of death was mocking me.
Far out.
And so instead I just had to choose to embrace hope and be brave, and trust that, I could do it. I could do hard things no matter what the outcome was. And I guess, I don't know. I do not know how I got through those months, but I tried to really separate the pregnancies and tried to make sure that Banksie knew that she was loved and wanted, and that I want her to come no matter what. Even if it's only for 3 hours again, I want her to come. And so I really tried to talk that through. And obviously I wanted her to be there longer than 3 hours, but I was
of course,
Lawson dying doesn't make his life any less. He's still just as important to Luke and I, and he's still our baby. And so I wanted Banksie to know that no matter what, she was important to us. And we found out she was a girl, which was, we both knew pretty much immediately when we got the pregnancy test. We were like, it's a girl. We know it's a girl. And I felt a lot of grief at first. I was like, I'm not getting Lawson. I'm not getting a boy that's going to feel that longing to be a boy mum. And so walking through that was tricky. But I got there in the end, and we're so grateful to have Banksie. I ended up so I was in high risk care, and I had scans every 3 weeks. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks towards the end. And everything was all looking perfect with her, which didn't give me a lot of reassurance. Really, I was like, until she's in my arms.
That's what I know. That's what I'm scared of. Because we were told our whole pregnancy, she's perfect. Placenta looks great, fluid looks great, bub's good. There's her heartbeat. I literally was told that at every appointment, and so I'm like, I will not have reassurance that she's perfect and out until I'm holding my baby.
Exactly. No, totally.
That's a really. But I love what you've just said. That's so powerful and so beautiful. And I have thought similar lately. I'm like, I survived this and I never, ever want to experience it again, but I can survive anything. And so it's like, whoa. Ugh, I don't even want to think about it. But
no, I know.
That's heavy.
I think, just having hope that I will hold my baby, that the bassinet will be slept in, that, Lawson will get to hand his things down to his little sister. And so we ended up getting induced at 39 weeks. And that was just a recommendation that they made, and I didn't question it. I was like, yep, whatever, do what you think. And we got induced. And I had, first of all, they just broke my waters, and they wanted to see what happened. Nothing really happened. I had a little bit of contractions, but it was nothing much. And then they were like, let's start the drip. So they put it on a really, really low dose of the drip. And when they did that, I was like, the contractions. So I was in the same hospital as well, but I had asked for a room that was facing a different way. I had asked for the bath to be covered. I came in early and I decked it out with photos and music and other things that were different. I did a lot of work to kind of get to the point that I could birth in the same hospital. So so then at about when they'd started the induction drip, I was like, I can't do this. Like, this is like so triggering. Like, I don't think I can do it anymore. And I was just about to ask for a cesarean, which was like, I was open to doing that. Like, I don't think I can go through this anymore. I'm like, and I don't know what to do. And the midwife said, why don't you just lay down for a little bit? And this was before I think I'd said to Luke, I don't know if I want to do this. And she'd said, why don't you lay down? Like, things are going quite slow at the moment. Just lay down and have a rest. I'm like, okay. So I laid down on the bed. As soon as I laid down, I was like, I do not like this position. Like, this is not fun. And I was laying on my side, so they came and put a peanut ball between my legs. And then I was like, no. I'm pushing. She's coming, like, right now. And I legit pushed twice, and she came out. Put her on my chest screaming. And it was the most beautiful, heart-wrenching, moment of just joy and elation and thankfulness that, filled every broken part, and also made me feel
and
close to Lawson.
What an absolute legend of a daughter to be like, you know what, I know my mum can't handle the next 10 or 12 hours of this, so I'm just going to go now. Like, that's just her being like, I got you, Mum. Yeah.
My active labour is recorded as like 30 seconds or something like that on the thing. Like, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. I don't know that the next baby would be like that, but we can hope. Yeah.
And so you felt like, like obviously just so much relief. I can only imagine. But then, so you're saying you felt closer to Lawson in that moment?
Yeah, I think like I realised that she could never replace him, and that like he always will have that piece of my heart that, of course a baby brings joy, but it doesn't replace the fact that we miss him. And so I think that made me feel really close to him, because it kind of brought me back to that hurting again. But also then I'm like, this is your sister. Like, we get to teach her about you and like talk about you and keep you more alive in our family home. And I think, for me, I guess I am waiting in expectation to see my son again in heaven, but I'm also on earth knowing and getting to know and love and delight in my daughter. And so there's always going to be this tug on my heart. But, having her here and having him there in that moment, it just felt so beautiful to me to, feel connected to them both somehow. Like, again, another
and
out of body.
I think it's beautiful. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. And I think it's beautiful that in that moment, I feel what you're explaining is that she didn't replace Lawson. And I think that's a beautiful feeling, because I know that people say, like, that baby's not going to replace them. But you'd have a little bit of fear of like, am I going to forget about them? And sometimes when you're not hurting, you're like, does that mean I don't love them, or am I forgetting about them? So for Banksie to remind you, like, I'm here, but I'm not replacing my brother, and he's just another part of, an element to it. And that's really beautiful.
Yeah, she's the best. She's the best.
I love seeing your posts.
Yeah, she's special, and she definitely knows that Lawson's the baby in the pictures, and she always wants to point at it and carry his photos around. And we do little, like, instead of butterfly kisses, we do Lawson kisses, because he reminds her of the butterflies. So I ask her if she wants a Lawson kiss, and she puts her eyes right up to me and blinks, and it's just so beautiful. So she helps Lawson feel alive in our lives every moment of the day, which I just couldn't ask for anything more.
How old is Banksie?
She
like a
is
year and a half?
Yeah, almost 16 months.
And so because I think this is super beautiful and powerful as well, and I know the girls at coffee the other day were saying, like, when do we, or how do we talk about our children that are not here to our living children now, especially if they're young? At what point did you start talking about Lawson to Banksie? Like, I feel like it's just a natural progression that Milli will always be spoken about from the second our baby is born. And when did Banksie start to, like,
I started
acknowledge
the same talking about Lawson from get-go, and I would say our prayers at night, and we would thank God that heaven is real to us, and that Lawson is there. And so just like speaking his name a lot. And I guess we started, we showed her photos. It probably has only been in the last month that she kind of I said, oh, look, where's Lawson? And she went and got the photo, and then went and got one of her little baby dolls and was holding the baby doll and going, shh, shh, shh. And so she still doesn't understand, and definitely doesn't understand that he's the brother or, that kind of thing, but she knows his name. And so I think we just can continue she's interested in looking at photos of him. She loves looking at photos of him. And so I just think we'll just keep doing that and keeping him alive. And hopefully one day we'll get to explain it to her a little bit more. I am nervous for how that will go and how to make sure I do it well as a parent. But it's beautiful.
I think even as an adult, it's hard to talk about, but I think the fact that I have to believe in heaven to know that I'm going to see my daughter again.
Yeah.
And I think that is a super powerful part of it. And I had a lady when we were in Mexico, in all kindness, went to debate me on heaven. And I was like, please don't. I'm not the person to debate on this. Not I have to believe that I'm going to see her again. And so I think it's just such a beautiful thing to have that belief, if anything, or, and so that's how I think I would be explaining it. And I know people talk about them being in the stars or being in the rain or being in the clouds or being wherever, and all of those things are just so precious. And I'm sure whichever way it's meant to come out, it will. Yeah. I know that there's so many resources, little, books for people to read for their kids. But I just think having them around the house and having their photos, and kids are so intuitive, they are. Feel them and see them and play with them. And
they really are. They really are. It's beautiful.
Oh, it has been so nice to hear your entire story.
Sorry, I talked for so long.
No, I love it. Our podcasts go generally between an hour to 2 hours, and I remember when I first started, Dylan's like, don't go longer than 50 minutes because people won't listen to them. And I'm like, so I remember the first one I did 2 50-minute ones, and then I was like, okay, and then the next one went for 2.5 hours. Yeah. And I walked out and Dylan's like, no one's going to listen to that.
They did.
And so now I show him the listens, and I'm like, bro, you don't know.
That's it. I know. Well, because there's just so much that we could say. I could talk forever. But
of course. And that's what I always say. There's nothing off limits. And I said to him when he was saying all of that, because he was such a podcast expert, I just said to him, I said, I'm never going to stop someone mid-story and be like, okay, that's it. It's just not, Yes, and that's what I say at the beginning of it. This is your story, and you tell it in as much depth as you want, and whichever way. And you did amazing.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me share, Rochelle. Appreciate it.
You are so welcome. If there's any resources or anything that you want to send through, your podcast is actually going to be out this Sunday because we're so up to date with everything.
Yay.
But I love that. I love that we talked about everything in so much detail. I loved, postpartum with a baby, postpartum without a baby, vaginal births, going back to the same hospital, doing the work you did to be able to birth in the same hospital. That's super powerful because a lot of people don't have a choice to go to another hospital. Yeah. So knowing that, you did the work, which I assume was, with that grief counsellor and your birth trauma counsellor and you and Luke doing counselling together and doing it separately. They're all phenomenal things that have obviously got you guys in a space that you're in now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think if I could just say, if there's anyone on the Central Coast that wants to be a part of Hannah and my support group, we would love to have you. We know how daunting it is to come and be a part of something like that, but we also know how healing it has been for everyone in the group to share stories with people that just get it and, just have that community, which is so important and vital for us all. So everyone is welcome.
Absolutely. And I am so glad as well and that I met you guys in person the other day because Stephanie, I'm interviewing next week. She's Sage's mum and she was really scared to come. She's like, I just don't know what to expect. And I said, imagine having coffee with 6 girlfriends, but you've all lost babies and so there's nothing off limits.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, but I'm still too scared I'm going to say the wrong thing. And then it was so beautiful to see her there having coffee and being vulnerable and emotional and opening up. And it's just it is the safest space. Like nothing is off limits. And I know I said something to one of the girls who had lost twins. There was identical twin loss, and then there was what's the other one called? Fraternal. Yeah. And I made a comment that I would have taken offense to the way I said it. And then I apologized to the mum. I said, I'm so sorry. To Sky, I said, I'm so sorry. I just said that was really insensitive. She goes, oh, no, of course not. And it's just like, it's just beautiful. It's just a really beautiful, I loved it. And I loved hearing about everyone else's babies and everyone hearing about Milli. And
special. Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Rochelle. Thank you for having me.
Thank you again. You're so welcome, and I hope to see you again in face-to-face soon for a big cuddle.
Yes, that sounds great. Awesome. All right, bye.
Thanks, lovely.
See ya.
Bye. Bye. Hi there, Milli's mum here. My name is Rochelle, and I'm the creator and host for this podcast, Little Life, Big Loss. Whilst I hadn't planned on adding trigger warnings to the podcast, because let's be honest, our whole life and this whole podcast is one big trigger, I would like to preface a few things. Every episode I record could include any of the following: birth trauma, stillbirth, neonatal loss, termination for medical reasons, mental health struggles, suicide, the stages of grief, and all the things in and around these topics. Some episodes might also mention living children and pregnancy after loss. Please read the caption for a summary of what you can expect in this episode. The opinions shared by my guests on the podcast are the opinions of those individuals and do not always reflect the same opinions of mine. We are not professionals, we are just lost parents sharing our story. If you hear of something that you wish to try for yourself, please seek professional guidance from a professional in that field. A GP, an obstetrician, a psychologist, psychiatrist, support worker, or the likes of. And finally, thank you all for the support and love that we have been receiving. I'm in love with this safe space I've created for our babies to be spoken about in so much real and raw detail. If you feel connected to an episode, please share it with someone that you think it might help. And if you would like to help our community, we have created a PayPal account, and we are asking that each time you listen to an episode, you donate even just $1 to the account to help us do more things in this space. If you go to PayPal, search Little Life, Big Loss. We love and appreciate you so much, and thank you again. If you are here because you have experienced baby loss recently or a long time ago, I'm so sorry. I know this pain will never go away. My heart breaks with you. This is a pain no one ever expects to endure. Or maybe you are listening because you have just found out your baby is unwell in utero, and now you have some really hard-hitting decisions to make. I am, again, so sorry. These are decisions no parent should ever have to make. I hope these podcasts can lighten the load just a little bit in ways to help understand what the road ahead might look like and what your options are. Remember, you always have options. It is your body and your baby. If you have never experienced the loss of a baby and you are here to learn, thank you. We want to be heard and listened to. You will help someone somewhere with the knowledge taken from these podcasts. If any of today's conversation has triggered any uneasy emotions for you, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or lifeline.org. Another organisation working specifically with pre- and postnatal depression and anxiety is Panda. You can find them at panda.org.au. And remember, postnatal depression and anxiety does not discriminate. It can affect both men and women, mums and dads. Please seek help from your GP, a psychologist, your local hospital, a midwife, obstetrician, Lifeline, or Panda. Thank you again for listening. I love you and miss you, my Milli.